Hello, I'm Reverend Ruth Van Lillian. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of the Emerald Coast. We are a covenantal community founded on loving kindness and a common devotion to our free faith. We recognize all the earth as sacred ground, and we welcome each other into this virtual space. We especially welcome those visiting with us today. We are so glad you're here. We invite you to check out our website and our Facebook page to learn more about us. We hope to touch hearts, teach minds, challenge spirits, and comfort souls. May you find refreshment and restoration in our service today.
Shall we gather at the river where bright angel feet have trod, with its crystal tide forever flowing by the throne of God? Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful river. Gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God. There we reach the shining river, lay we every burden down. Grace our spirits will deliver and provide a robe and crown. Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful river. Gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God. Soon we'll reach the shining river, soon our pilgrimage will cease, soon our happy hearts will quiver with the melody of peace. Peace we'll gather at the river, the beautiful river. Gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God.
Laura Horton Ludwig. Fire and water, ancient opposites. Sun and ocean, the cradle of life. Dancing flame and dancing river. We invoke them together today as we kindle our chalice flame.
Good morning on this beautiful Sunday morning. Today I have a story for you. It's about water and it's about people. So I'm going to share the pictures so we can get started with a picture. So the name of the book is Go Home River. It was written by James Magdans and illustrated by Diane Wigham. And just so you know, all the pictures in the book were painted with octopus ink, which is very interesting. And one thing I really like about buying secondhand books, and this was a secondhand book, is you get little things like this. See, this book was at Coal Creek Elementary in Louisville, Colorado. either in a second grade classroom or in the library. It was marked for second grade. So I just think it's really cool to have a connection to something else and find little notes in books. This book was written as a bedtime story for the author's son. And first of all, it's a story about the Inupiat people of the Kobuk River in what we now call Alaska. They lived inland among trees and not out on the tundra like other Inupiat tribes, and would journey every summer to the coast to trade. But this is also a story about the river itself and how it starts out as many small streams that join together and then become part of the ocean eventually. And since this is our ingathering service, I thought it was particularly good since the people at UUFEC have started out in many different places and ended up here together making a community. So here's the story about Go Home River. When I was young, I lived beside a wild river. The river was always going somewhere and I never tired of watching it. My mother told me the river began in the mountains to the north and ended in the ocean to the west. But this I had never seen. One day, my father went down to his boat at the edge of the river. I asked him where he was going. To the mountains in the north and the oceans in the west, he said. And as I always did, I asked if I could go along, and he had always said no. But this time, he said yes. So we packed the boat and set off up the river. Our dogs pulled on the tow line while mother and father pushed with their poles. With each bend in the river, the mountains grew closer while the river grew smaller. At the end of the day, we made our camp on a sandbar. We turned our boat upside down to dry. We cooked over a small fire and listened to geese calling from the lakes. We watched the sun slide behind the mountains and fell asleep on the ground. Each night, it was the same. On the fourth day, my father lifted me onto his back and we began to climb the side of a mountain, through spruce trees, across blueberry meadows, up steep fields of tumbled rocks, all the way to the edge of the snow. The mountains around us were bigger than anything I had ever seen. I felt that I, like the river, had grown very small. My father put me down in the snow. My feet were wet. My legs were wet. I looked back and saw my footprints filling with water. The river begins here, my father said. My mother placed dried whitefish and seal oil on a flat rock for us. Eating made me thirsty. Listen, my father said. I could hear gentle water under the rocks, but I could not see it. Then I found an opening where a small stream trickled down the mountain. My father showed me how to cup my hands and fingers tightly together to drink. The river begins here, he said. A cool wind began to blow. Clouds darkened the sun, and suddenly I was cold. Raindrops splashed on the rocks. Come, my father said, and he walked swiftly down an old caribou trail. Lightning flashed. A gray curtain of rain moved across the face of the mountain. Closer, and then we were in it. Big drops of rain trickled off my father's hair and onto my cheek. The river begins here, my father said. When we reached the river, it was full of melted snow and swollen with rain. I found a hard green rock in the riverbed and I showed it to my father. Jade, he said, we can use this. He wrapped it in a caribou skin and tucked it into the boat. We all climbed into the boat, father, mother, dogs, and I, and sped down the rushing river. For 5 more days we traveled. Our river met another river, and each time our river grew wider and stronger and deeper. It was hard to imagine our river had ever been small. Then one day, the river began to take itself apart. It split into smaller rivers. First one to the left, then another, and then again. I asked my father why the river was getting smaller. My father held out his hand, spreading his fingers wide. The river ends with many fingers, he said. This is but one. The willows drew back from the shore, and then the shore disappeared into the water. All I could see ahead was water and sky and water. The river had become impossibly, fearfully large. My father could see the question in my eyes. We have reached the ocean, he said. The river ends here. We paddled on until we came to a wide beach lined with boats and tents, alive with people. I had never imagined this many people would be at the end of the river. I walked through the camp with my father. There were bags of flour, tins of coffee, bolts of cloth, and beads of every color. It was a wondrous fair. My father unrolled his purse and set out my mother's baskets. The trading lasted for many days. Then one after another, people took down their tents, loaded their boats, and paddled away. On the morning we were to leave, a thick fog floated in from the ocean and covered the trading beach. I could hear waves, but I could not see them break on the shore. I could hear gulls argue, but I could not find them in the sky. I could hear people talk, but I could not understand their words. My father came out of our tent. He looked at the fog. The river is going home, he said. The river does not stay in the ocean forever. On cold mornings, it rises into the clouds and goes home to the mountains. When the fog lifts, we will go home too. Soon the fog did lift, and we pushed off from the trading beach and sailed toward the river. The sun rose higher in the sky, and the air grew warmer. Far away, the mountains seemed small, but I knew they were not. I could see snow that one day would melt into the river. I watched clouds pile into the mountains and lose their rain into the river too. We entered the gentle river, and I was glad. I lay down in the boat and felt the river flow beneath me. I could feel each stroke of the paddles pull the boat home. I watched the clouds move across the sky. How easy it was for the river to float home in the clouds. As I drifted toward sleep, I imagined that I too was floating home in the clouds. Go home, river, I whispered. Go home. So that's our story today about water and the river and the trading and the Inupiat and our community. And I'm so glad you listened to this story with me, and I'll see you again.
As we consider the joys and the concerns in our community and the many things that go unspoken, let us spend a moment of silence, and I'll close us with a few words. The ocean is vast, and we may feel like we are swimming alone, that we may be going under, but we are not. We are part of a community. We are holding each other afloat. We are taking care of one another in these difficult times. Let us lift up curiosity, hope, and joy as we make our way through the days to come. We are together. Amen. Shalom. Blessed be. Gonna lay down my burden down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. I'm gonna lay down my burden down by the riverside. Gonna study war no more. What did you bring with you today? Did you bring burdens that weigh you down? I know we all brought individual worries, fears, frustrations, losses. Will my paycheck clear in time to cover the bill I just mailed? What is that weird thing growing on my neck? Why is my spouse so hard to live with? I feel like such a lousy parent sometimes. I miss my loved ones so much. What will the COVID test results be this time? My life is not going according to plan. Did we bring collective burdens too? Aren't many of us worried about police shootings, global warming, predatory lending, racism and white privilege, child abuse and neglect, the opioid epidemic, increasing threats to constitutional freedoms, attacks on the trans community, poverty, the erosion of women's ability to control their own bodies, and of course, the pandemic, which invades every part of our lives every day. It goes on and on. Are you worried about our church? About who will fix the wobbly toilet? Who will mow the grass? How will we get the building cleaned up and ready for occupation again? Will everyone pay their pledge? Who will help care for our sick and homebound? How will we keep fighting for social justice? Who will take leadership? What will happen next year and the next? I'm gonna lay down my burdens down by the riverside. How do we have an in-gathering service when we aren't in this building together? How do we gather when we can't be together in person? We have been away and apart for so long. The temptation to give up and stop trying to connect, to engage with one another, feels tempting sometimes. Just maintaining the basic requirements of daily living has become exhausting. So we all brought burdens with us this morning, some lighter, some heavier, some shared, some individual. Church community is a place to bring those things which weigh us down and hold us under. Did we bring anything to help ourselves? How about curiosity? You know, the worry about what happens next is the fear that we won't be able to handle the unknown. If we can find resources and support through times of challenge, then we can turn that fear into curiosity. And the burden becomes motivation and an opportunity. There are prophets of gloom and doom out there, and they have many ways to get our attention, to get into our heads. If we allow such folk to steal our energy, our enthusiasm, our curiosity from us, we will stop caring about anything or anyone, and that is no way to live. We must hold our curiosity as a precious thing which leads us in positive directions and offers us opportunity to find new and better ways to manage our burdens. What are you curious about this morning? And what about hope? Anyone bring some of that? I read a Facebook post recently from a young mom who got up on her birthday, and before she could even get a cup of coffee, she had to find the plunger and address a bathroom clog. I told her that her day could only get better from that. We have to have hope. Even a broken clock is right twice a day. No matter how bad things may seem, there are good things happening too. Now, I've had plenty of days that started much like my young friend's birthday, and all I wanted to do was crawl back in bed. I'm telling you that hope is not there. To find hope, we have to get up and move. I eat hope for breakfast. I drink it like a tonic. While I sit on the floor to change my 19-year-old son's diapers, I smile and tell him he's my favorite Angus in the whole wide world, and he grins and says, "Mama," which means I'm his favorite mama. There is hope. There on the floor of my untidy house with hundreds of tasks undone, and my beautiful, cheerful boy lying in front of me, there is hope. And joy. Oh, did anyone remember to bring some joy today? I bet our youngest friends did. Joy comes so much more easily to children because they don't cling to burdens like we do. They lay them down more easily and live in the now. Where is our joy today? Perhaps it is in this late summer rain. Perhaps it is in the beautiful music Cecile is playing. Perhaps there is quiet joy shared between spouses or lovers. Perhaps between parents and kids. Maybe the joy waits in the delicious lunch that we will each enjoy later. If you forgot to bring your joy today, please bring it next time. We all need more joy. So we all brought some burdens, and many of us brought resources like curiosity and hope and joy. And now I'd like to tell you a little of what I see and what I know. After some weeks of observation, consultation, and analysis, I have come to the conclusion that we are in over our heads. But don't despair. I know that is usually a bad, scary place to be, but I don't believe our situation is quite so dire. When I was 5 years old, I got in over my head. My father had convinced my mother to take a trip to help her cope with the loss of their younger daughter, my sister, from leukemia. I know, it was devastating for both of them, and my mother was having a particularly hard time. She reluctantly agreed to go, but only if they brought me along. One afternoon, Dad and I went down to swim while Mom rested in our hotel room. While Dad got into a conversation with another tourist, I dropped my towel on a chair, kicked off my sandals, and headed for the water. I had taken swim lessons previously, and I felt quite capable on my own. I walked to the edge. I saw a big step down. I jumped, and the water came up to my knees. I jumped down to the next step, and the water came up to my waist. The next jump brought the water up to my neck. And, well, as you might guess, I took one more jump, and there were no more steps. Down I went, in over my head. I have no memory of being frightened. Rather, while surprised, I still felt like I knew what I was doing. As my feet touched the bottom, I instinctively pushed off and came up and took a gulp of air and went right back down. And then I pushed off again and came up for another breath. I repeated this move several times before I suddenly felt a hand on each of my upper arms and found myself being yanked backwards up out of the pool. I was dumped rather roughly to sit on the side, and I looked up to see two strange men, one fully dressed and now soaking wet, as they walked away. My father had been oblivious to the entire incident until the very end, when he saw my rescuers set me down on the concrete. He rushed over in alarm, and I'm sure as he realized how close he had come to losing his other child, all he could do was fuss at me for not waiting. That was the beginning of, "You may not enter the water ever without me or another adult. You must not swim alone." My friends, I think we may be in over our heads, but I am not convinced that we are on the verge of drowning. I think we are close to a pushing off point so that we can launch ourselves upward, take a breath, and see what to do next. Today is our ingathering and water ceremony, and I invite you to consider that while we may be in over our heads, we have flotation devices within reach. We can swim, and we are not alone. I see a remarkable group of people swimming together who are dedicated, committed, intelligent, resourceful, willing, and hard-working. I see a loving community helping to ease each other's burdens. I see a group of Unitarian Universalists who really want to make a positive difference in the world, beginning with our corner of it here on the Panhandle. I see individuals investing time and energy in ministry projects, and I observe our leadership working doggedly to restore our building and grounds to full functionality. I know COVID has tried to pull us all down, but we are not drowning. We may be spitting salt water out of our mouths, but we are still afloat. We are still swimming. Here's what I know. The Florida Panhandle needs Unitarian Universalists. We know that there are UUs out there who don't know they are UUs yet, and we cannot let them down. I know there are folk outside these walls who need what we have to offer: liberal religion with mutual respect and an honoring of different beliefs. This free faith and the platform it provides for the work of justice is something many people hunger for, and we are the only church in town offering this particular gift. Every day I turn on the news, I am convinced that our country needs more UUs, and we can do something about that. More UUs make the world a better place. Times like these, when everything is so much harder,
the need is greater for both liberal religious thinking and for roll up your sleeves and get to it justice work. More people are hungry and homeless, oppressed and abused, and they need us now more than ever. Drowning in our discouragement is simply a luxury we cannot afford. My friends, look around. Find your flotation devices. Curiosity, hope, joy. Push up from the bottom. Take a deep breath. Practice your backstroke and keep swimming. We will make it to dry land if we stick together. Amen. Shalom. Blessed be. Now it is time for our water ceremony. I invite you to get 2 containers and fill one about halfway with water. These could be a pitcher, bowl, glasses, or cups. The water could be plain tap water, or it could be water you've saved from a special place or event. Ingathering is a tradition among many Unitarian Universalist congregations who observe it in the early fall when most folk have returned from the travels of summertime and have resumed school, work, and the daily routines. In ordinary times, we would meet here in the church building and be reunited for the start of a new year. There would be hugs and hearty greetings among the adults, and the religious education rooms would be abuzz with noise and activity. Today, as we watch this presentation, perhaps gathered virtually on a Zoom meeting, or perhaps watching alone or with family or friends, it is more challenging to cultivate a sense of togetherness. We must remember our science. What we are able to observe with our naked senses is only a small part of the reality of our universe. There are all kinds of energy waves and particles which travel at extraordinary speeds largely unobserved. Structures which seem solid are actually mostly made of space, filled with vibrating molecules. In other words, togetherness as the phenomenon of physical proximity is kind of an illusion. We are connected regardless of physical distance. Our thoughts and our feelings can be transmitted via all manner of electronic and radio devices. There was even a time when Unitarian Universalists maintained contact through mail delivered on horseback. Today you can see my face and hear my voice, both as recorded and in real time, as I tell you that you are each so precious to me as my parishioners. You can talk with each other and communicate your plans, your hopes, your frustrations, your dreams, and your affections. Ingathering is a state of mind and heart. And today we will remind each other that there is nothing that can really separate our fellowship. We are gathered together because we declare that we are. We focus our awareness on that connection and we celebrate it as holy. Hear these words by the Reverend Gary Kowalski. We draw from many wells, from oceans and rivers, from lakes and streams, from the muddy Mississippi to the roaring Rio Grande, from faraway places and from the ponds and puddles in our own backyards. Yet all are refreshing. Each rivulet is cleansing, each capable of nurturing and sustaining life. As people of faith, we draw inspiration from many sources, from earth and sky, from poetry and legend, from art and music, from conscience and the law written on our own hearts, each satisfying our deep thirst for meaning and the yearning for justice that rolls down like waters in the soul. Christian, Jewish, Buddhist, humanist, pagan, theist, feminist, Native American, Hindu, Muslim, Taoist. We bring our water into communion to share with one another, just as we pool the many insights that inform our own singular experience. For a droplet of water alone has no color. It remains clear, translucent, almost invisible. But in combination, the many drops together can create a brightly varied rainbow. Unseen realities made real and present for all to witness. As you each take your vessel of water and begin pouring it home, I will pour water which has been saved, collected from past water communions here, and brought from other Unitarian Universalist congregations from their ingathering ceremonies. Listen to the sound of the water. Remember the mystery in the science. Oxygen and hydrogen atoms have been coming together to make water molecules throughout the history of our planet. We drink them, we breathe them in, we absorb them through our skin. The same water we pour today has been part of many oceans and many clouds, of many streams and rivers. The water connects us. The water gathers us. Like creatures around the mystical world-watering hole, we gather to drink, to bathe, to splash, to pour. We are made of mostly water, and the salt content of our blood is very close to the salinity of the ocean. My friends, we are gathered in once more by the pouring of the water, already holy, already sacred. Let us remember our connection and bless it and each other. We are still the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of the Emerald Coast. We are still members of the family of the earth. The water sings of our togetherness in mind and heart and spirit. May it be so now and always. Amen. Shalom. Blessed be. Down my sword and shield, down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. Gonna lay down my sword and shield, down by the riverside. Gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. 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 gonna study war no more. Gonna shake hands around the world, everywhere I roam, everywhere I roam, everywhere I roam. Gonna shake hands around the world, everywhere I roam. Gonna study war no more. Ain't 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 gonna study war no more.
By Eric Cherry. May our gathering together this morning be a blessing for one and all. May it inspire us to a year of hope and courageous faith. And may we walk that year in the full awareness, as often as possible, of the blessed ties that bind each to all.
Siblings and kindred, as we depart today from our virtual togetherness, let us remember that the water may be deep, but we are not alone. We have what we need, and we will make it to dry land together.